beneath the glow of opulent chandeliers. Rows of jewelry sparkled like frozen constellations in a well-known shop nestled in the heart of Willow Creek, a quaint town in Maine. This wasn't just any jewelry store, it was the pride of Aaron Fletcher, a self-made man whose determination and integrity had built one of the most respected businesses in town. Yet, this glittering legacy was about to be stained by an incident so egregious it would shake the lives of everyone involved. The story begins with Margaret Fletcher, Aaron's mother, a kind-hearted elderly woman in her late 70s. She had weathered life's storms with grace and resilience, always supporting her son's dreams. But on one ordinary afternoon, her visit to the store would spark a chain of events that revealed the ugly underbelly of prejudice and injustice. The bell above the door chimed softly as Margaret Fletcher stepped into Golden Haven Jewelers, her son Aaron's pride and joy. Margaret adjusted her worn leather handbag on her shoulder and paused to admire the displays. Shelves of glittering necklaces and brilliant diamonds reflected the store's soft lighting, creating an almost magical ambience. For Margaret, the store wasn't just a place of business. It was the culmination of Aaron's hard work, a testament to the long hours and sacrifices he had made. Pride swelled in her chest as she thought about her son. She often visited the shop, not to buy anything. Her life as a retired schoolteacher left little room for indulgences, but to support Aaron and spend precious moments with him. Today, she carried a neatly wrapped sandwich from his favorite deli, ready to surprise him during his break. The familiar face behind the counter wasn't there to greet her, though, instead, a younger woman stood in her place, her sharp features and meticulously styled hair suggesting she was new. Margaret offered a warm smile, but the woman's cold gaze made her hesitate. "Good afternoon," Margaret said politely, clutching her handbag a little tighter. The woman barely nodded in response. "Aaron isn't here at the moment," the woman said curtly. "He's in a meeting." Margaret nodded, her smile unwavering. "That's all right, I'll just look around while I wait." As Margaret meandered through the store, her fingers lightly brushed the glass cases. Her eyes settled on a pair of diamond earrings, simple yet elegant. They reminded her of a pair she'd once owned, back when life was simpler. A pang of nostalgia washed over her. She leaned closer to get a better look, her mind wandering to distant memories. In her reverie, Margaret didn't notice when her sleeve brushed the display stand. One of the earrings tipped over, clinking softly against the glass and falling to the floor. Startled, she bent down to retrieve it, her movements slow and careful. "Excuse me, Mom," a sharp voice cut through the quiet. Margaret looked up to see the saleswoman towering over her, arms crossed and a frown etched on her face. Margaret held up the earring. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I accidentally knocked it over." The woman's expression hardened. "Knocked it over? Or were you trying to pocket it?" Margaret froze, her breath catching in her throat. What? No, I would never," the saleswoman interrupted, her voice dripping with disdain. "People like you shouldn't even be in stores like this." Margaret's face flushed with a mix of shock and humiliation. "I'm Aaron's mother," she stammered. "This is his store." The woman raised an eyebrow, her skepticism evident. "Right, and I'm the Queen of England." Margaret's attempts to explain were met with hostility. Before she could say more, the woman picked up the store phone and began dialing. "Wait," Margaret pleaded. "You don't need to do that. This is all a misunderstanding." The saleswoman shot her a glare. "You can explain that to the police." The next moments blurred together in Margaret's mind. The sight of uniformed officers striding into the store, the cold, impersonal tone of their questions, the unmistakable sound of handcuffs clicking into place around her frail wrists. Margaret felt tears sting her eyes as humiliation washed over her. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling. "I didn't do anything wrong. Save it for the station," one officer muttered, leading her toward the door. Just as they reached the threshold, a voice rang out, firm and commanding. "What the hell is going on here?" The officers halted, turning to see Aaron Fletcher standing in the doorway. His broad shoulders seemed even more imposing than usual. His sharp suit slightly rumpled as though he'd rushed back. Aaron's eyes swept over the scene, his mother, tearful and handcuffed, the officers, tense and defensive, the saleswoman, standing smugly to the side. His jaw tightened, fury flashing in his dark eyes. "Take those off her," Aaron demanded, his voice low but charged with anger. "Sir," one officer began, "we were responding to a theft complaint." Aaron stepped closer, his tone icy. "Take him off, now." The officers exchanged uneasy glances before one of them reached for the cuffs. Releasing Margaret's wrists, Aaron immediately moved to her side, his hands gentle as he rubbed the red marks left by the metal. "Are you okay, Mom?" he asked softly, his voice breaking the tension in the room. Margaret nodded weakly, but tears continued to stream down her cheeks. "I didn't do anything, Aaron. She accused me of stealing." Aaron's expression darkened as he turned to the saleswoman. "Miss Taylor," he said, his voice cold, "explain to me why you thought it was appropriate to call the police on my mother." Miss Taylor faltered, her earlier confidence crumbling. I didn't know she was your mother." She dropped an earring. "And I thought." "You thought?" Aaron cut her off, his voice rising. "What gave you the right to assume she was a thief? Do you have any evidence at all? Or was this just a gut feeling?" Miss Taylor's face turned pale. "I was just trying to protect the store." Aaron let out a harsh laugh. "Protect the store? From my mother? Do you realize what you've done? You didn't just insult her, you insulted me. This business, and everything we stand for." Miss Taylor stammered, but Aaron held up a hand to silence her. "You're fired. Get out of my store." Her eyes widened in shock. "Sir, please." "Now," Aaron said, his tone final. Miss Taylor grabbed her belongings and fled, leaving an awkward silence in her wake. Aaron turned to the officers, his gaze unwavering. "You owe my mother an apology," he said. "She's been humiliated enough for one day." One officer cleared his throat. "Mom, we're sorry," he mumbled. Margaret didn't respond, her face unreadable. Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder. "Come on, Mom," he said gently. "Let's get you home." As they left the store, Aaron's mind raced with thoughts of what he needed to do next. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The sun dipped low in the sky as Aaron Fletcher guided his mother into the passenger seat of his car. The air between them was heavy with unspoken words. Margaret sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, the red marks from the handcuffs still faintly visible. Her son's jaw clenched as he started the engine, his mind churning with anger and disbelief. "How are you holding up, Mom?" Aaron finally asked, his voice softer now that they were away from the store. Margaret glanced out the window, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'll be fine," she said, though her tone betrayed her exhaustion. "I just don't understand how it got to this point." Aaron gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles whitening. "Neither do I, but I'm going to make it right. I promise." They drove in silence for a while, the familiar streets of Willow Creek offering little comfort. Aaron parked in front of Margaret's modest home, a cozy cottage surrounded by blooming hydrangeas. He helped her out of the car and into the house, guiding her to the couch before heading to the kitchen to make tea. When he returned, Margaret was staring at her hands, Lost in thought, Aaron placed a steaming mug in front of her and sat down. "Tell me everything," he said, his voice firm but calm. "From the moment you walked into the store." Margaret recounted the events, her voice trembling at times. She described how Miss Taylor had accused her, the harsh words, and the humiliation of being handcuffed. As she spoke, Aaron's anger reignited, but he kept his composure for her sake. "This isn't just about today," Margaret said quietly when she finished. "It's about the way people see each other. That woman didn't just see an old lady admiring jewelry, she saw someone who didn't belong." Aaron nodded, his expression grim. "And I won't let that slide. What she did wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous." The next morning, Aaron arrived at Golden Haven Jewelers before it opened. He unlocked the door and stepped inside, the familiar scent of polished wood and lavender cleaning solution greeting him. But the store no longer felt like a sanctuary. It felt tainted. Aaron walked to the back office, where he retrieved the security footage from the day before. Sitting at his desk, he watched the events unfold on the screen, the way Miss Taylor's demeanor shifted, the way the police treated his mother without hesitation. His stomach churned as he replayed the scene, each detail solidifying his resolve. He called a meeting with his staff for later that day. Until then, he needed to start damage control. By noon, Aaron was on the phone with the Willow Creek Police Department, lodging a formal complaint against the officers involved. He spoke with the chief, outlining the unprofessional and biased actions of his team. The chief listened carefully, offering a measured apology and assuring Aaron that the matter would be investigated. Satisfied, Aaron turned his attention to the store. He drafted a statement to address the incident, knowing the community would soon hear about it. Transparency was key if he wanted to preserve the store's reputation and rebuild trust. When the staff gathered in the break room that afternoon, the tension was palpable. The remaining employees exchanged uneasy glances, clearly aware of the previous day's events. Aaron stood at the front, his usual warm demeanor replaced by a steely determination. "I'm sure you've all heard about what happened yesterday," he began, his voice steady but firm. "An innocent person, my mother, was accused of theft and treated like a criminal in her own son's store. This is unacceptable on every level." He scanned the room, letting his words sink in. Golden Haven Jewelers is built on trust, respect, and inclusivity. What happened yesterday violates everything we stand for. That's why Miss Taylor is no longer with us. A murmur rippled through the group, but no one spoke up. "We're going to do better," Aaron continued, "starting immediately. I'm implementing mandatory training for all employees, training that focuses on cultural sensitivity, unconscious bias, and proper conflict resolution. This store should be a safe and welcoming place for everyone. No exceptions." He paused, letting the gravity of his words settle over the room. "If anyone feels they can't uphold these values, you're free to leave. But understand this, I won't tolerate anything less." The staff nodded, some with more enthusiasm than others. Aaron dismissed them, hoping his message had resonated. Later that evening, Aaron returned to his mother's house. Margaret was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, her movements slower than usual. Aaron leaned against the doorframe, watching her quietly. "Mom," he said after a moment, "I've taken steps to make sure this doesn't happen again." Margaret turned, her expression weary but curious. "What kind of steps?" Aaron explained everything: the staff training, the formal complaint against the police, and his plans to speak out publicly about the incident. Margaret listened, her face softening as he spoke. "I'm proud of you," she said when he finished. "But I don't want this to consume you. Aaron, you've already done so much. Aaron shook his head. It's not just about you, Mom. It's about making sure no one else has to go through what you did. I can't let it go. Margaret sighed, but a faint smile touched her lips. You're a good man, Aaron. Your father would have been proud. Aaron swallowed hard, emotions welling in his chest. He stepped forward and pulled her into a gentle hug. We'll get through this, he said softly. Together. The next morning, Golden Haven Jewelers was bustling as usual. The store's polished surfaces gleaming under the morning sun. Aaron stood behind the counter, his posture straight and his expression unreadable. The events of the past 2 days had left him restless, his mind turning over every detail like a puzzle he couldn't solve. He knew the situation was bigger than just his mother. It was about the systemic prejudice that had allowed such an incident to occur. As Aaron reviewed inventory in the back office, his assistant manager, Claire, knocked on the door. She was one of his longest-serving employees, a dependable presence in the store. Aaron, she said, stepping inside, you need to see this. Claire held up her phone, the screen displaying a local news website. The headline read, Elderly woman falsely accused of theft at prominent jewelry store. Beneath it was a grainy image of Margaret, her tear-streaked face framed by the store's entrance. Aaron's heart sank. It's already in the news. Claire nodded. It's spreading fast. Customers are asking questions. Aaron rubbed his temples, a headache forming. What are they saying? Mixed reactions. Claire admitted. Some people are supporting you for firing Miss Taylor and standing up for your mom. Others think you overreacted. Aaron exhaled slowly, forcing himself to remain calm. We'll release the statement today. I need to make it clear where we stand. Claire hesitated. There's more. Someone claiming to be a friend of Miss Taylor is saying she acted that way because your mom was behaving suspiciously. Aaron stiffened, anger flaring. Suspiciously? That's ridiculous. Claire placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. I know, but you need to be prepared for pushback. Not everyone is going to take your side. Aaron nodded, determination hardening his resolve. Let them talk. The truth will speak for itself. Aaron spent the afternoon meeting with a lawyer, determined to press charges against Miss Taylor for defamation and assault. Together, they reviewed the security footage in detail. The video showed Margaret admiring the earrings, accidentally knocking one over, and the immediate escalation by Miss Taylor. But then, something else caught Aaron's eye, a figure lurking in the background. Pause it, he said, leaning closer to the screen. The lawyer froze the frame. In the corner of the screen, partially obscured by a display case, was a man in a dark hoodie. He appeared to be watching the exchange intently, his posture tense. Who is that? Aaron muttered. The lawyer frowned. I'm not sure. Could be a customer, could be nothing. But Aaron's instincts told him otherwise. He copied the footage onto a flash drive, determined to uncover the man's identity. Something about the way he lingered suggested he wasn't there just to browse. That evening, Aaron sat at his kitchen table, reviewing the footage on his laptop. The mysterious man in the hoodie moved subtly, his gaze fixed on Margaret and Miss Taylor's confrontation. Aaron noticed the man reach into his pocket and glance around nervously before slipping something into his jacket. Aaron froze the frame. What the hell? He rewound the footage and watched again, this time paying closer attention. The man had taken a small object, a ring, perhaps, from a display case. It wasn't Margaret who had stolen anything. It was him. Aaron's pulse quickened as he grabbed his phone and dialed Claire. I found something, he said, his voice urgent. The security footage shows another person in the store, a man in a hoodie. He stole a ring during the commotion. Claire was silent for a moment. Are you saying Miss Taylor accused your mom to cover up for him? It's possible, Aaron replied. Or maybe she was just too focused on my mom to notice him. Either way, we need to find out who he is. The next day, Aaron filed a report with the police, sharing the security footage and emphasizing the importance of identifying the man in the hoodie. Meanwhile, rumors continued to swirl in Willow Creek. Customers whispered about the scandal, some questioning Aaron's decisions, others praising his integrity. Aaron's statement to the press helped calm some of the backlash. He spoke with poise and conviction, emphasizing the values of Golden Haven jewelers and his commitment to justice. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't over. 3 days later, as Aaron was closing up the store for the night, a figure appeared outside. At first, Aaron thought it was a late customer, but as the person stepped closer, he recognized the hoodie from the security footage. Aaron's heart raced. He quickly locked the door and called 911, keeping his eyes on the man. The stranger tried the door handle. Realizing it was locked, he stepped back, his face partially obscured by the hoodie's shadow. Then, to Aaron's astonishment, the man pulled out a small piece of paper and slid it under the door before walking away. Aaron waited until the man was out of sight before unlocking the door and retrieving the note. It was a hastily scribbled message. I didn't mean for her to get hurt. Meet me at the old train yard tonight if you want answers. Aaron's stomach churned. It was a risky move, but his curiosity, and his desire for justice, overpowered his caution. The old train yard was dark and desolate, the air thick with the smell of rust and damp earth. Aaron parked his car a safe distance away and approached cautiously. His phone in hand, the man in the hoodie stood near an abandoned freight car, his hands in his pockets. You came, the man said, his voice low and raspy. Who are you? Aaron demanded. Why did you steal from my store? And why involve my mother? The man shifted uncomfortably. I didn't mean to involve her. It wasn't supposed to go down like that. What was supposed to happen? Aaron pressed. The man hesitated, then sighed. I was hired to create a distraction, to take something and make it look like someone else was the thief. I didn't know the lady was your mom. If I had, I would have bailed. Hired by who? Aaron's voice was sharp now, his patience thinning. The man hesitated again, then muttered a name. Taylor. Aaron's blood ran cold. Miss Taylor? The man nodded. She wanted to make someone look bad. Said it was about sending a message. Aaron's mind reeled. Had Miss Taylor orchestrated the entire event? But why? Before Aaron could ask more, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. The man stiffened. That's my cue, he said, turning to run. Wait, Aaron shouted, but the man disappeared into the shadows. As Aaron drove home, his thoughts swirled. Miss Taylor's actions had seemed impulsive. But if the man's claims were true, she had planned everything, and targeted his mother specifically. But why? What grudge could she possibly hold? Aaron knew the truth was within reach, but uncovering it would require digging deeper into Miss Taylor's motives, and confronting the darker side of human nature. The weight of the revelation bore heavily on Aaron as he paced his living room that night. If what the man in the hoodie claimed was true, Miss Taylor's actions weren't just a momentary lapse in judgment, they were calculated. He couldn't shake the question, why? Why would she target Margaret? A kind-hearted woman who had never wronged anyone. Aaron knew he couldn't let it end here. He had to uncover the truth and make things right, not just for his mother, but for everyone who had been let down by the injustice. The next morning, Aaron called Claire into his office. I need you to dig into Miss Taylor's employment history, he said. Anything that might explain why she acted the way she did. Claire nodded. her expression serious. "I'll get on it right away." As Claire worked, Aaron reached out to Detective Price, the officer handling the theft report. Aaron shared the encounter at the train yard and the man's accusation against Miss Taylor. Price leaned back in his chair, his expression contemplative. "If this is true, it changes everything, but we'll need more evidence to tie her to the setup." "I'll find it," Aaron said, his voice resolute. By midday, Claire returned with information that made Aaron's stomach drop. Miss Taylor worked at another jewelry store in Boston before she came here, Claire said, handing him a file. She was let go under suspicious circumstances, accusations of inventory disappearing. But nothing was ever proven. Aaron flipped through the documents, his mind racing. "So she has a history." Claire nodded. "And there's more. The Boston store's owner mentioned she had a falling out with one of the senior staff, a woman named Martha Fletcher." Aaron froze. "Fletcher? That's my mother's maiden name." Claire's eyes widened. "You think it's connected?" "It has to be," Aaron muttered. "Miss Taylor didn't just target my mother by chance. This is personal." Aaron decided to visit the Boston jewelry store to learn more. The owner, a middle-aged man named Thomas Graves, greeted him warily but agreed to talk when Aaron explained the situation. "Martha Fletcher," Graves said, nodding. "She worked here for years. Honest. Hard-working. She was a mentor to a lot of the younger staff, including Taylor." "What happened between them?" Aaron asked. Graves sighed. "Taylor always wanted more responsibility, more recognition. She had this sense of entitlement. Martha tried to guide her, but Taylor didn't take criticism well. Eventually, there was a blowout. Taylor accused Martha of sabotaging her career. It was nonsense, but she left shortly after." Aaron leaned back, his suspicions solidifying. "And my mother, she retired not long after Taylor left. Said the stress wasn't worth it anymore." Graves paused. "Do you think this is about revenge?" "I'm certain of it," Aaron said grimly. "Miss Taylor blamed my mother for her failures, and she brought that grudge here." Back in Willow Creek, Aaron called Detective Price to update him. Armed with the new information, they obtained a warrant to search Miss Taylor's apartment. What they found there confirmed Aaron's fears. Hidden in a drawer were emails and notes outlining a plan to frame Margaret. The messages revealed Miss Taylor's bitterness toward Margaret, blaming her for every professional setback she'd ever faced. One message read, "She humiliated me once, and I'll make sure she knows how it feels." Detective Price's team also recovered stolen inventory from Golden Haven, linking Miss Taylor to multiple thefts. It became clear she had used the man in the hoodie as a distraction to cover her own tracks. The case against Miss Taylor unfolded quickly. She was charged with theft, defamation, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The trial drew widespread attention, and the courtroom was packed with reporters and curious onlookers. Margaret, though shaken, attended every session, her presence a quiet testament to resilience. Aaron sat beside her, his protective instincts sharper than ever. The prosecution presented a compelling case, using the security footage, the stolen goods, and Miss Taylor's own messages as evidence. Her defense team tried to paint her actions as a momentary lapse in judgment, but the evidence was too damning. When the jury returned with a unanimous verdict of guilty, Aaron felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Justice had been served. In the weeks that followed, Golden Haven Jewelers underwent significant changes. Aaron's new staff training programs were met with enthusiasm, and the store's reputation began to recover. Customers expressed their support, appreciating Aaron's transparency and commitment to fairness. Margaret, though still wary of the spotlight, found solace in the community's kindness. Neighbors stopped by to offer their support, and her weekly visits to the store were greeted with warmth and gratitude. Aaron also took steps to ensure the incident would leave a lasting legacy. He partnered with local organizations to promote awareness about workplace discrimination and systemic bias, turning the painful experience into a force for good. One afternoon, Margaret sat with Aaron in his office, sipping tea as they reviewed the store's monthly report. The numbers were promising, a sign that Golden Haven was not just surviving, but thriving. "I still can't believe everything that happened," Margaret said softly, "but I'm proud of how you handled it." Aaron smiled, placing a hand over hers. "You taught me to stand up for what's right, no matter how hard it is." Margaret's eyes glistened with emotion. "You've done more than that, Aaron. You've shown this town that change is possible." As the sun set over Willow Creek, casting a golden glow through the office window, Aaron felt a sense of peace. The journey had been harrowing, but it had also revealed the strength of their bond and the power of perseverance. The world wasn't perfect, but they had taken a step toward making it better, one act of courage at a time. The story of Margaret Fletcher and her son Aaron is more than just a tale of injustice. It's a testament to the power of standing up for what's right, even when the odds feel stacked against you. From the humiliation Margaret faced to the resilience Aaron showed in uncovering the truth, this journey reminds us that courage, love, and integrity are the cornerstones of a fair and just society. In today's world, it's easy to jump to conclusions or let biases cloud our judgment. But this story urges us to pause and reflect. How often do we truly see people for who they are, without prejudice or assumption? Margaret's experience shows us the cost of snap judgments, while Aaron's determination highlights the importance of speaking out against injustice. To everyone watching this story unfold, let it serve as a reminder to choose kindness and fairness, treat everyone with respect, regardless of their background or appearance. Every person has a story, and it's our duty to approach each other with empathy. Stand up against injustice, like Aaron. Don't shy away from confronting wrongdoing, even when it's uncomfortable. Change begins with those brave enough to challenge the status quo. Embrace diversity, whether in the workplace or in our communities. Diversity strengthens us. Let's build spaces where everyone feels valued and welcome. Learn from our mistakes. None of us are perfect, but recognizing and addressing our biases is the first step toward a more equitable world. Thank you for joining us on this emotional and thought-provoking journey. If this story moved you, inspired you, or gave you something to think about, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be the first to hear more incredible stories like this, stories of resilience, justice, and hope, all shared free of charge. Click that subscribe button now, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, let's continue exploring stories that matter, inspire, and unite. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in the next story. Stay kind, stay curious, and stay connected.